and I don't know what we've done with her, but she's been with us for 2 months. She's got fabulous. And here I'm interrupting my story, which I always do for long stories. I'm so grateful MA is here helping me, and she has to have an essay. She's working on, MA is working on her MA. It's spelled, her name is AIME, and she's working on an MA at Warwick University. And she has to finish an essay by midnight tonight on the euro. So if any of you have opinions about the euro, you can pass them on to MA. It might help her out in her essay tonight. I have a lot of opinions on the euro, which I passed on to her. I think it's the stupidest idea I've ever heard of. And how can you have... Here, I'm getting my stories. How can you have totally different cultures with one currency? One culture, not mentioning any names, but they tend to be more to the north, believe in hard work and paying taxes. The other cultures actually believe in taking it easy and not paying taxes. How can you have one currency? It's crazy. Anyway. My wife was born in Germany, so I'm a little bit prejudiced that way. Oh, here I go again. What's the difference? Well, there's kids in the room. What's the difference between a German and a virgin? Once a German, always a German. Moving along. So, this is the story I wanted to tell. I was driving down from Schwartz Bay, from the ferry. It was raining a fair amount as we came down. I was starting to feel sorry for people because I knew there was going to be people standing in line. And it put me in mind of my favorite standing in line story, or as they would say in England, queuing. And here's where I start name dropping and bragging. Over, I think the other side of this wall, there's a painting of a Loon family, which maybe you don't know it, but it was the only wedding gift that Canada gave to Prince Charles when he married Lady Di. Prince Charles got the original of that painting. That's a very high quality G clay, slightly smaller than the original, which was 36, I think. Lady Di got some jewelry, so she didn't get the painting. And the couple got some furniture that had been repaired and was made in New York State, which some Canadians didn't think that was appropriate, but anyway, that's what the couple got. When I did the painting, I put 2 baby loons, predicting that they would have 2 kids, and turned out that way, as you know. So that year, later in the year after the wedding, all the wedding gifts that the couple received were put on display in St. James's Palace. And we were hearing all about it on CBC, and I thought, gee, it'd be kind of cool for Birgit and I to go and see the wedding gift in St. James's Palace and see my painting there. And it happened, we were in England at that time on a Lindblad tour. We had a day in London. And so, but then we started hearing on the news, it's 6-hour lineups for St. James's Palace to see it. We didn't have 6 hours because we were with this group. And so we thought we'd get up really early in the morning and to get in line properly. Well, it was pouring rain that day, and we had to stand in line for about 3 hours. And here's a tip. If you're standing in line with umbrellas in pouring rain, make sure you're the shortest person. Because the shortest person is the only one that stays dry. Think about it. The umbrellas go like this. This one dumps on this one, and that one dumps on you. So the shortest person is the one that stays dry. So we're manipulating umbrellas and trying to crouch down, getting under the other umbrellas. A whole busload of Scotsmen and women, Scots people, were in line right next to us. We had lots of time with them. And finally, my ego got the better of me, and I wanted to brag that, by the way, I've got a painting in there, the gift of the people of Canada. It's really, really hard to impress a Scotsman. They couldn't care less. They were very, very underwhelmed. So I just stopped trying to talk about that at all. We finally got in, and we started going through the gifts. Now, St. James's Palace is like a big U, and you wouldn't believe the gifts. Just every single thing. Gifts from Boy Scout troops, a doily crocheted by Little Miss Muffet from Sussex. They put everything out there. I really feel sorry for the royal family. But they have people to handle all this stuff. And no Bateman painting, no gift from Canada. We kept looking and looking, but then I tried to avoid the Scots group because maybe I was lying. Finally we got to the end, and it was the wedding gifts from the nations. They had them all across the end. And we kept going slowly through the nations. No gift from Canada, no loon painting. We finally got to the door going out, the end of that room, and there was a huge display of the gift from the Saudi family. Not the people of Saudi Arabia, I assume, but the Saudi family was all gold and glittering and jewels and everything. Had its own guard. And then you turn and go out the door. But just between the Saudi jewels and the door was a pegboard. I mean, a ticky-tacky pegboard like you find in cheap hardware stores, with little holes in it, and you put the little hooks in. And there was 2 or 3 paintings hanging on that. The one above me was by Raoul Dufy, and if you're an art snob, you'll know that that's a very important contemporary French artist, Raoul Dufy. I was proud to be at least under Raoul Dufy. My painting was hanging from the knees down on the pegboard, and so I was, I was wondering what the reaction of the crowd would be. I was standing there, I was watching people, eyes all dazzled from these gifts. And then they looked, and there's the door, and they go out the door. Nobody looked at the painting. I waited and waited and waited, and they all just came in and headed out the door. Finally, one man looked, and he actually bent down a little bit and studied a little bit. And I was so overwhelmed with gratitude, I went up and tapped him on the shoulder, shook hands with him, introduced myself, congratulated him on his taste. So that's my royal family, royal wedding gift story. I'm afraid to ask, have they ever hung it? I kind of don't want the answer. In fact, I was through here, and maybe I'll do it again. I was through here last week with Prince Andrew, obviously Charles' brother. And I didn't want to ask him. He said he could look into it, but I said, no, don't. I assume it's been in storage the whole time. I know if we ask Buckingham Palace, can we borrow it, they're always ready to loan it. And so I don't. I mean, the royal family art collection, Rubens and everything, I mean, the competition is enormous.
Yep.
I was hoping it might be small enough. I'm going to tell another. They always say I tell wide stories. Yeah. Well, here we go. When I was asked to do it, I had to decide how big to make it. What would you do if you were asked to do a painting for the royal family? My immediate reaction was to make it as big as possible so it would be conspicuous. But I knew the bigger I made it, the less likely it would be to hang. And so we happen to know, and I'm about to do a whole bunch of name dropping. I enjoy other name droppers. It doesn't irritate me, but it irritates you. I happen to be quite good friends with Sir Peter Scott, who passed away quite a few years ago. One of the great human beings, a scientist, a great author, a great artist. He was a superb wildlife artist. He had a wildfowl trust in Slimbridge in Gloucestershire. And we've been to his studio a number of times. He actually was at our house once. And so I knew him well enough to talk to him on the phone. I said, and I knew he was really close to Prince Charles. In fact, he and Prince Charles would paint together. They go before they paint together. And so I phoned him and said, how big should I make the painting? He said, I can't advise you on that, but I know Prince Charles's butler, the man in charge of the house. I guess that's a butler. I know, and I'll give him a call, and he'll have a suggestion. So he got back to me, and he said, you can make it any height you want, but don't make it any wider than 11 inches. So I imagine he'd gone through the house, there was only one wall that had no painting on it, and it was probably 12 inches wide, and it was probably between the scullery and the downstairs maid's bedroom or something. It's just There's stairs going up. Anyway, it's probably a piece of wall about that big. And I thought, the heck with it. The original I made the 24 by 36, and you can see the print of it there. I think I'll go ahead with more name dropping. I didn't tell the story before. If you're in the earlier group, we got invited because through my prints. Oh, I didn't say this to the other group either. There was another group before you, you know that. This is the first show I've ever had that hangs prints and originals in the same show. All my other shows, Smithsonian and art museums and that, have only had originals. And I think it's fabulous because they've got about 600 prints of high quality that I'm proud of and been doing since the early 80s. And we have I think about a third of the show is prints. And you can't tell just standing back whether it's original in print. And so, at any rate, through the sale of my prints, and this is one of the reasons I'm proud that I did prints, although I guess many of you know I'm one of the most hated Canadian artists by certain other Canadian artists because I did prints. That's another complicated topic I've got essays on. But one of the reasons I'm glad of it is back in the 80s and 90s, when sales were huge, there was huge, millions of dollars were raised through my prints. I didn't come out of my pocket, but through conservation editions. And my prints had raised $1 million for Sir Peter Scott's Wildfowl Trust. And Prince Charles was the chairman of the board. And Peter Scott had died, but Prince Charles, to reward the big donors, which I counted, even though I just took the paintings, he said you can have an afternoon at not Slimbridge.
Chartwell.
Pardon?
Chartwell?
No, not Chartwell. Highgate. Highgrove. His home in Gloucestershire, at Prince Charles's home. We thought, oh, that's fabulous, because I'm a royalist, I'm a member of the Monarchist League, I love the royal family. And so this was a real treat. Of course, we got going over by security, looking with mirrors under our cars and everything. Just as we were about to jump in the cars, we got where Prince Charles won't be there. He'd fallen off his polo pony and broken his arm and he was in hospital. But the dew was still on, and so the aide-de-camp will show you around the grounds and a little bit around the ground floor. And so there's still a celebration to reward you folks. And that was just fine. By the way, I wrote Prince Charles a thank you letter by hand. He wrote me back a little note with his left hand, because he broke his right hand. That's a priceless little treasure that we have, which I guess the Bateman Foundation will eventually have. But here is my name dropping of all name dropping I've ever given. So here, Birgit and I were, with two other people, walking through Prince Charles's gardens, and the two other people were, I want to make sure, Richard Branson, might have heard of him, and the other one was Michael Caine. So it's Richard Branson, me, Birgit, Michael Caine, strolling through Prince Street. How do you like that for name dropping? Don't take it seriously. I think it's okay. And guess what we're talking about? How terrible Canada geese were. Because they do this slippery stuff all over their lawns and golf courses and everything. So, okay, that's enough anecdotes. What I hope people will take away from the show is the incredible complexity of nature. I think that's one of the characteristics of my work. Unlike, I think, most other artists, you go through one of my books, you have no idea what's on the next page. It might be a moose, or it might be a house, it might be a tree frog, it might be a native canoe. You have no idea what's on the next page. When you go through Jackson Pollock book, you know it's going to be dribbles. You go through Tom Thompson, you know it's going to be Algonquin Park. It's quite fairly predictable, and that's probably a good thing. But I'm all over the map. You have no idea when you go around the corner what you're going to see. But that's the way nature is. That's the beauty of it. And people need to stop and go slowly and take time. The painting I'm standing in front of is the one I did for, until this, the biggest, most spectacular show in my career. It was at the Smithsonian in 1986. And I did this painting well, this is the actual painting, 6 feet high and 8 feet long. 2 big paintings, the other one was an elephant's face. And talking about particularity, and I hope people go slow and look at it, there's 9 different species of birds in that painting. Going all the way from blue-winged teal through, of course, the regular egrets, the great egrets, American egrets. And there's a couple of snow egrets, there's pied-billed grebes, and there's coots and moorhens, and ending up with wood storks down here. And that's an intriguing thing for people and kids and everything to pay attention. We tend to pass through our whole life in a hurry with blinkers on, with not stopping to look. And that would be a big message that I would have. And one of the ways we've planned to slow people down, and this is the brilliance of Paul Gilbert, the executive director, who, by the way, I taught all through high school. And he said he had me for, that was 5 years in Ontario, then grade 13. He said he had Bateman for 5 years, and he drank the Bateman Kool-Aid. And he hasn't been the same since. Some of the older folks know him with the Kool-Aid. So he's really the brains behind all of this, even the lighting and everything. And he came to us, by the way, from the Art Gallery of Ontario, which would not touch Bateman with a 10-foot pole. He was director of marketing for them, so he was a very smart, talented guy. And he came up with the idea of these QR codes. In case you don't know what if you're of a certain age, you don't know what a QR code is probably. It's those little black squares with black scrambled eggs on them that you have on your airplane ticket now. So it's like a barcode, only more complex. And every painting has a QR code. And eventually, and we're almost there, certainly the big painting at the end has it. If you're of the certain generation and you're carrying a smartphone or iPad or whatever that can read this kind of thing, because a lot of handheld devices can't. You'll go up, you'll hold your device up to the label here, and bloop, up comes my face. And my face will be telling the story behind the painting, which Paul said in their market research at the Art Gallery of Ontario. They concluded most people, when they go to an art museum, they want the story behind the art. And it isn't there. There's no art museum in the world like this. It isn't there. In fact, many artists they resist talking about their art or telling stories about it. For me, being a storyteller and a teacher for 20 years, I like to babble on, as you're already finding. So up will come my face, and I'll probably say what I've already said to you, but I would probably also say, in fact, I've already said it, I'm going to interrupt myself. People keep walking into the bird room. As you know, you put your hand in front of some of those bird labels and you get the bird calls in the bird room. Somebody could touch the loon while I was talking about it. We have that old loon in the background. So we're all wired here. So what we have done, when I was at Royal Roads, I had a little captive audience who were volunteers. Some of them are probably you. I know some of them are here today. I can't talk to a camera, but I just love talking to human beings and even interviews and so on. And so I told them the stories on high-definition video. We have about 300 paintings in the can of my stories on high-definition video. And they'll be chopped up in various ways to be passed on. One of the other things Paul has come up with, and I'm going to finish the story here, there is a Robert Bateman nature trail. Last week, the city of Toronto, they're kind of busy with other thoughts right now. The city of Toronto passed the proposal to have unanimously passed the Robert Bateman nature trails all through Toronto. And these are trails that exist, but we're going to Batemanize them. One of the ways we're going to do it, you'll be walking along, say, the Brickworks Trail, some of you might know, in the Don Valley. You'll come to a bunch of sumac, and there'll be a cement post there with my image, the originals in the bird room, of the cardamom sumac. And it'll be embedded. I think we can get a band over embedded in the cement post with a QR code. you'll take your iPhone, and many people through, in future years will have them, and you hold it up to this image, the QR code, bloop, up comes my face, Bateman's face, in the Don Valley, talking about sumacs, talking about cardinals, and talking about my idea for the painting, which incidentally came from my show at the Smithsonian, where this was. The year before the Smithsonian show, I was waiting to talk to the staff in front of a huge, fabulous display of art of Indian villages, which was in the space where I was going to be. And while I was waiting for the staff, the wall to enter the show was a big rusty red imitation mud wall, with a door in it. And an Indian villager, tribal guy with a red turban, walked in front of the red wall. And I went, wow, red on red. I've got to do a painting of a cardinal in front of red leaves. I think I'll pick sumac. So you don't even see the cardinal. It's kind of hard to see the cardinal. It's stupid to put a cardinal in a pine tree. It's too obvious already. And so so I'll be talking, so you'll see my face, and then you'll be able to go to my Smithsonian show and do a virtual walk around the Smithsonian show, or you'll be able to go to Smithsonian's current website and find out what's on at the Smithsonian. You'll be able to find out in depth more about cardinals, more about sumacs, etc., all by touching the QR code. And so that'll slow people down. And one of the things I'll say about this one is, in addition to the great variety and incredible blessing that you have on the surface of the planet, which is thinner than the skin of an apple, is to an apple. I also have metaphors and other thoughts. Here my metaphor was, you're at Sadler's Wells at the ballet, on stage, almost ready for the curtain to open. They're going to be doing Swan Lake, the curtain's still closed, and all the ballerinas are primping and stretching and doing different things on stage. And the lights are not on yet. It's just off-stage lights, and it's kissing some of the ballerinas and missing others as you move across. So it's that moment in time that I was after. So that's kind of a sample of the kind of things I'm talking about. How am I doing?
Good time for questions.
Okay. I was telling the Giangameshi story about. I'm going to do it in less than 5 minutes. I don't know. Giangameshi, I think, is going to be on. If you're Canadian, you probably listen to CBC. If you're a Bateman fan, and you probably, if you're a daytime listener, you hear Q, Giangameshi. He's a fabulous interviewer, and I was honored to be in the audience. The most exciting interview I've ever had in my life, and I've had a lot of exciting interviews, because here I was in the Royal Theatre with 1,500 people listening to the interview, and every time I would say something that they approved of, I was interrupted with cheers and applause. I've always been just one-on-one with an interview. So I would say, I'm against fracking. I'm against salmon farms. And so on and so on. It was very stimulating for me. Is everything going to be on TV tonight? I don't know how or when or whatever. I'm not sure if I'll be able to see it. But he asked me. No, I want to preface it this way. He started with this wonderful monologue that he does. Those of you listening, it's admirable and it's so witty and entertaining and smart at the beginning. He said, "Here I am in Victoria." He said, "You know the thing about Victoria? Victoria is nice. I mean, it's very, very nice. It might be even too nice." And he went on and on nice, and then went into other things, and to wild applause all the time. So then he asked me the question that fairly often gets asked: how come your work is not exhibited in the National Gallery, the Ontario Art Gallery, or the Vancouver Art Gallery? It's in a number of other art galleries, by the way. The big three, but it has not. My response is that always was, that is the least important question facing the planet. Whether Bateman is in the National Gallery or not couldn't matter less. It's kind of a joke. I'm interested in it, but I'm not sad about it or angry or anything else, and I don't care whether I'm in it or not. That's not important. And then we went on talking a little bit more about it. But I forgot a wonderful line, and I didn't think of it till 6 a.m. the next morning. I woke up and I said, darn, I missed the chance, and it's true. And here's what I thought when I woke up. What I should have said then, after I said it's not important, I should have said, you know my problem? My work is nice. In fact, it's very nice. It's too nice. And it's the cross I have to bear. I mean, literally, it's the cross I have to bear with respect to the art priesthood, as they call it. And I understand where they're coming from. They like work that has edge. But then I would have given me the chance to go on and say, I do have at the Bateman Centre one room that is really quite nasty. And it's that room in the corner. I hope you all get a chance to go and take a look at it. But it's my edgy kind of stuff, my environmental commentary kinds of painting. And people don't know about that because it doesn't usually go, well, it never gets into prints. Nobody wants to hang up a dead albatross in their living room. But that may be my most important painting, the dead albatross and the dead dolphin and the drift net stretched over. It's a real drift net stretched over the painting. So I wish that I'd said that. Okay, questions? Anybody any questions?
Why do they hate the fact that you do copies?
So that I do prints. I don't copy anybody else's art. In a nutshell, it stems from the original printmakers. Original prints are people that do etchings, stone lithos, woodblock prints, where they actually work on the copper plate for the etching. The original is not the copper plate. It's just the gooey black mess with the ink. The original is the etching. And they worked on it by hand and they're printed off one at a time. Mine are printed by machines, and they're copies of originals. And so you can understand they may have worked for months on this etching, all by hand. They have it for sale in a mall, and the other end of the mall is a store that sells my prints. They're trying to sell their etching for $300 frame, and mine's selling for $400 frame, and mine are all selling. I mean, naturally makes them mad. And they say, why should you be signing and numbering these things? Because it takes several months to do one of my prints. And they send proofs to me, and I critique them, and I send them back, and they do many, many touch colors and all that kind of thing. I don't just hand them over to a machine. And I sign and number them for the same reason they do, for market reasons, because they're limited, and also because I want to see each one and check the quality. That there's not just not discarded. That's why they sign and number theirs too. Rembrandt never signed and numbered his. It's just a recent thing. Any other questions? Back.
How many paintings have you done?
I don't know how many paintings I've done, but I've got about 600 prints. and many, in fact, many of the originals have never been made into prints.
Yeah.
So one of my qualities of it has a number in it. My eyes glaze over. I don't count. I don't know how much my paintings sell for. I don't even know if they're sold. One painting I'm really proud of is the big snow leopard just around that little wall there. And I hadn't seen it for years and years and years, and I went down to my publisher in Florida, and I walked in the door, and there it was hanging on the wall. And I said, oh, it's nice to see that old friend again, because the president was there to greet me. I said, who owns that? He said, I think you do. That's nice. I don't pay attention to my career, but I got a couple of secretaries and my wife, and they tend to pay attention. Good question. Yes?
What attracts you to birds over other animals?
That's an interesting, and there's books and essays and stuff. What attracts you to birds over other animals? Well, first of all, I've been a serious birder since I was 12. I had my first bird list when I was 12, a Peterson field guide. And by the way, I went home to school, did art every day from the age of 12 on. Most kids give up being interested in nature and art when they're 12. They go on to more mature things. I just have never reached that stage yet. And I've given up growing up. I'm never going to grow up. I can't believe I've gotten away with this kid stuff all the way to this level. But people always paint what they love. And I've been an avid bird watcher, and we have many bird feeders, and we go birding and all that kind of thing. So I paint what I love, just like Toulouse-Lautrec loved, Moulin Rouge, and they got a black backstage in the valley. So I paint what I love, and besides, birds are so varied, they're colorful. There's something spiritual about we're stuck on here on Earth, and they can just go. They were here centuries before we were here, and then maybe here centuries after we've gone. And there's so much variety in birds. People say, why don't you ever paint people? I do paint people. If you go in that room, you'll see my first serious painting I did when I was 12, an elk I did for my mother. And you'll see Birgit down at the end. I love doing people. I think I'm pretty good at doing people. And I think I've done more Homo sapiens than any other mammal. I think I've done more Homo sapiens than Canis lupus. But I've done more birds than mammals, for the reasons I just said. Yes?
Is it true that you paint lots of pictures at the same time? Well, not at the
Yes,
same
I
time,
do.
but you have like 6 going on. Because I'm curious about this big one here, advice how long that would take.
Yeah, I don't know how long it takes because I work on 5 or 10 at once. I've got about 10 at home, and I've got a list of about 20 that I've got to have done before Christmas. But I won't. I'll fail. I've got 3 I have to have done by June 1st, which I think is next Saturday. Photograph for catalogs, and that's a drop-dead deadline. Doing pretty well, but I'm going to have to really struggle to get them good enough for the catalog. Yeah, I work, and the reason I work on so many at once is I like when I first start, or when I start, and then if it's a painting that's half decent, it always gets worse. There's never been one that was smooth sailing. It always gets worse, and then so I start a new one to cheer me up, because I like it when I first start. Then it gets worse. And by the time the 5th one was looking really horrible, the first one doesn't look quite as bad as the 5th one, so I go back to the first one. So I leapfrog along, so I can't keep track of all of them. Some have taken one terrible painting I'm not going to mention because you might have a print of it. It took 6 years before I pulled it. Better make years go last. Go to camp. Oh, okay. So yes. Oh, okay. Over there.
Oh.
Yes.
What advice would you give to a young artist starting today?
Oh, good. A good question. I've taught art for 20 years, and a lot of kids were interested in being artists and so on. I was a full-time teacher until I was 46. I sold my first painting when I was around 35. I just gave them away before then. And the advice I'd give to my students was, if you want to be an artist, get a meal ticket. Don't try to paint for the market. If you try to paint for the market and do what's popular, it's a guaranteed way to be a nobody. You'll just join 1,000 other nobodies that are trying to paint bald eagles or killer whales or whatever they think sells best. And so paint what's in your heart. Paint your heart out. You've got the meal ticket to put the bread on the table. And if you build a better mousetrap, the world will be the path to your door. But the key is, and in the last group, grandmother asked, what advice can I give to little kids? What courses can they take? Forget about courses. I taught art for 20 years. I don't believe in art courses. They're fun. I taught art because it was fun, and it was a meal ticket. But what I strongly recommend, this sounds so superficial, but it's not. 2-word answer, do art. If you want to be a guitar player, play the guitar.
Yeah.
If you want to be a photographer, if you want to be a writer, and writers, Margaret Atwood says is, write stuff. That's the way you learn to be an artist. Forget about the courses. Look at other artists that you admire. Maybe you can emulate them, but just do art. That's what I recommend.
Thank you.
I think I better. I think I better wrap up.